it has been a big week in the wrestling industry.
Well, it certainly has. And to quote old Eddie Maguire about, what a big week in football it's been, or what a big week in wrestling it's been.
Indeed.
With the whole Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, $3 million hush money saga.
Been expelled from the board.
Well, he's voluntarily stood down as CEO and chairman, and the board has put Stephanie McMahon as the interim one in while the investigation goes on. Vince has come out and said that he will fully comply with the investigation. And for those, I suppose, who don't know, if we probably should give them some background, a story's come out of nowhere that Vince allegedly was having an affair with a former employee. Some reports suggest it was a paralegal that was hired. She came on a $100,000 salary, all of a sudden started having an affair with Vince. That $100,000 salary went to $200,000. Somehow John Laurinaitis got involved and he was also having an affair with her. And she was paid $3 million hush money. And the money actually came out of Vince's personal money. It wasn't WWE money as such. It was out of Vince's personal account, which begs the question, you would have signed a confidentiality agreement. They would have had all sorts of contracts in place. So it's obviously not quite so hush.
I've been watching the Jim Cornette show, listening to it, sorry. And Brian Last on there, which is his anchor, his compadre on the show. He's actually quite up with contract law because he comes from the music industry.
Ah, right.
Right, and he used to work for Sony.
Okay.
I think it's Sony, right? If I am wrong on that, I do apologise, but I'm pretty sure it's Sony or one of the major companies he worked for. Broke down the situation, right? And he broke down that it's not the $3 million hush money that's the issue. No. It's that her wage went up $100,000, which is being paid by WWE.
Correct.
Right, so you've got collusion and corruption there. And the other point he made was that you can't just oust her as CEO, but there is clauses in the contract where it says, well, any incidents or things that you may do that reflect poorly on the company, you can be kicked out for. Basically, you can lose your job for. Right. And really having an affair is looks pretty bad with a paralegal of the same company. And also the third thing was, this is not the first time Vince has done it. No. He had a long-term affair with his PA, personal assistant, many years ago. So, and the stories and rumors have been going around like this about Vince McMahon for years. Yeah. And actually Jim Cornette said he never saw that side of it. He was, was very respectable and, he obviously, like, guys are in a room and they see a good-looking girl and he make a comment, but he never saw anything that wasn't above board.
Totally unacceptable.
Oh, yes, unacceptable, yes, but nothing in the point where he was, groping them or luring them or anything like that. But these stories have been around for a long time, and we're only talking, this happened recently. I think they're talking in the last 3 or 4 years. Is that right, Anthony?
I think from what I read was like 2019.
There you go.
That's how far we go back.
Well, there's another story also circulating. It wasn't a paralegal, and it was a former female worker, as in a former female wrestler who'd been on there.
I haven't heard that.
Even though her name's been mentioned, I won't.
I haven't heard that, so that's news to me.
Yeah, so that was also mentioned, and her name's been mentioned a few times in a few different reports all over. So she wasn't a paralegal. She certainly was a worker, a wrestler. So I don't know who it is, but regardless, you're right in what you say and what this guy has also said. If it reflects on the company, being a publicly listed company with shareholders, it does have quite an effect. And Vince has also said he will accept any decision that comes, which is interesting.
But in his contract, it states that he still has all rights to creative.
Yes, he has all creative rights, but he
he's not really left the company, has he?
Oh no, he won't. Well, at this stage, he hasn't because the investigation is going. Should the investigation prove to be true and it's deeper than they thought, and it all hits the fan and whatever, he may well have to step away from the company.
But this is not a great look. We're only coming maybe 3 or 4 years out of the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
This is another punch in the eye, another black eye for pro wrestling. Yeah, look at what happened here in Melbourne with MCW and all the stories that come out after that.
Yeah.
And the other stories that happened around in Australian wrestling alone, without being and in worldwide wrestling, about how female performers and staff members that have been treated.
Yeah,
it's not a great look for the industry at all. Now we're talking the guy, basically God, right? When it comes to pro wrestling in the world, has now done it.
I think there's a few things, if you want to sort of break a lot of things down, and I don't want to hijack the conversation, so feel free to step in, Anthony. But a few things have been interesting. On SmackDown, which aired on Saturday our time, and Raw, which aired today our time, on both shows, Vince has come out to the ring. He hasn't addressed it or said anything. And notably, they don't, when they normally introduce him, the chairman of the board, they just introduce him as Mr. McMahon. And all he's done is come out, like today on Raw, saying, John Cena's back next year. Raw's this is the 1500 and whatever episode. We've been going for 30 years, 20 of those 30 years. The best of all time, John Cena was a main focus. He'll be here next week. And just threw the microphone and, had a bit of trouble getting out in the ring because his foot caught the bottom rope, and then jumped off the steps onto the ground and sort of strutted. And then same thing on Saturday on SmackDown, came out and just welcomed them all. He said, as the trailer says, then, now, always, and he goes, and most importantly, together. And that is quite a show of defiance. That's Vince saying, I'm not going to hide behind anyone or anything. I'm going to come out. And I think with the public exposure, I think, to be honest with you, irrespective of whether he's guilty or not and all of the morals and everything, I actually think it's really, really smart. He's coming out and he's saying, in one respect, he's saying, F you to everybody, and putting himself out there. But I think he's also showing, well, hey, I've got nothing to be worried about. So I think it's, there's certainly tactics behind it. And you can argue both sides. Is it smart to come out, or should you keep a low profile? And to be honest with you, I see both points of view personally. I do.
Yeah. I guess you expect Vince McMahon to come out there and put it face on with his personality and how he is. I mean, never met the guy, obviously, but anyone you talk to that's worked with him, I think once again, it was Jim Cornette made the comment that, if he was in a plane, he would demand the pilot do what he wanted it to happen, what he wanted it to do. He's always been like that. So this would be a definite, F you, basically back that, all right, I've been basically caught on something here, but I don't really care. I'm going to be defiant. I think pre-Me Too era, say pre-2010, this would work. I think this defines, I think with the current style of news and moral keepings of the world and that, this may not work. This may look more arrogant, but only time will tell, really. The other question I have as we're talking about this, and this is to both you and Anthony, is that let's say Vince is moved on. Let's say that Steph has moved on. Let's say wrestling, WWE becomes purely a boardroom business.
Yeah.
Nobody really up there knows the company as intimate as the two people that I spoke about. Triple H is not coming back. He's not going to come back with heart issues. So you're not going to have Triple H back, right? Firstly, who would you put in there if you were going to put in there? Now, we have a couple of choices. We've got Jeff Jarrett, and Anthony knows the other choices, but we've got a few choices that are already in the company that could go in there in that position, right? And do you think it will affect the direction of wrestling? Because at the end of the day, as a wrestling fan and as being, lightly involved in local business, we really take our directions from WWE. If WWE is hot, we're hot.
Yeah.
If they're not hot, we're not hot. And that's the fact. Crowds don't come to the smaller indies if WWE is not hot. That's the way it is. It's not being seen on TV. People don't want to go and see it in a hall, in some school hall in the middle of nowhere. So potentially, how's that going to affect the business in total everywhere?
I think there'll be a dramatic effect in a few different ways. I mean, is there anything at all to suggest that if Vince was moved on, that Stephanie wouldn't take over?
Well, they've put her in as
interim. Well,
interim,
that's the investigation's going.
But what I've read online here and there is that they're not keen to put her on full time. I think it's a fact that there's a McMahon there. Because remember, she was only run off 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And had nasty things said about her from the company and the board. So she's not a darling of the board.
Well, what about this Nick Khan who seems to...
Well, he's one that's in there, but he doesn't understand the wrestling business.
Well, nor does Tony Khan at AEW, but...
No, well, and look at what's happening there. That's an absolute disaster.
And nor does Dixie Carter.
Look what happened there.
Yeah, so, I mean, Jeff Jarrett is vice president of, what is it, Anthony? Vice president of something or other, but he's right up there. I mean, let's break it down. You got to have wrestling people running a wrestling company.
I agree.
First and foremost, I don't care who you are, what business acumen you got. If you don't understand the business and you're not from the business, you can't. Yep. You can't do it properly. You can't do it successfully because no matter how much all your rationalization and business decision making and everything the bean counters tell you and all the rest of it, if you don't understand the fundamentals, the psychology, how it works, it's not going to work. So that's the first thing. You need a wrestling person. That's not to say you can't have people like Khan and others around you or whatever, but you need a wrestling person. WWE worth billions and billions and billions of dollars, and the crowds they get and WrestleMania and this thing they're doing over in Wales and Saudi Arabia and all that. Well, no one's just going to let that fall over.
No, the board and the shareholders definitely don't want it to fall over.
So they need to invest in somebody, and it might be that you have someone who's the chairman of the board, CEO, whatever, to run the whole business side of it. But the product that is put out and the talent that you develop or bring in or whatever, that needs to be a real wrestling type. Now, back in the day when it first started to become what it was Vince and Pat Patterson who basically built it.
Yeah.
You need a smart wrestling person, not Eric Bischoff.
No.
Not who was that other one who used to be that booker who's booked everywhere and.
Well, Paul Heyman, you're talking about.
Although I'll tell you what. Oh, gee, now there's a name. There's a name.
There's Paul Heyman. You've got Gabe Sapolsky too, which is a guy that never Gabe Sapolsky. He was booking ROH. He's a really, really good booker.
Okay.
Really, really good. He actually took ROH from zero to hero, really. You never really seen him at WWE, but he would be a guy that would be in the conversation.
If the money was right, I'd go.
Yeah, well, we all.
$30 up there.
$30 will be there and a free hot dog, and we're there. That's indie rates.
What do you
Look,
think?
Jeff Jarrett is definitely a guy that you could have. I think you are right in the way that you need to split really WWE in two in a way of saying what is the business side and what is the product side. And then the product side should be run really by wrestlers, which understand wrestling, right? And the business side will then have to give obviously some form of overcast direction
Yes.
on, look, we don't want anyone, cutting anybody up with a razor in the middle of the ring, because it doesn't look good for the shareholders.
Anyway, now.
But I'm saying to you,
Yeah.
they control that business side, the side of, like, I think actually the side of television, and that should be done by the people who are creating product anyway. I think the business side, the shareholder side, and all that kind of thing should be run by the board and by something like a Nick Khan, which has got the business acumen and that kind of thing to do it. But leave somebody that's, say, the CEO of product or whatever it is should be running.
Even if you go to a wrestling operations manager.
Yeah, that's. I think at the moment Vince is wearing two caps, where he's running the board and he's running product and he's running business. And I think that's why sometimes the quality of the show, because he's thinking on a pure business point of view, falls over a little bit now. If you had a Dutch Mantel in there that was part of booking, heaven forbid a Jim Cornette, right, or a Gabe Sapolsky, which would be great, they would turn the product around and it'd be a lot different product because they were not concerning about business. They're concerning about the product that they're putting out there, and let the business be run by business people, that side of it. And obviously there's going to have to be an amalgamation. This could be profitable. This could be better than Vince being out of there. If you look at it that way, in a positive point of view.
Yeah.
Right?
I must say, if I had a choice based on just sort of what I know, and you've asked me the question without notice, so to speak, I like Heyman.
Heyman's good. Heyman's probably closest to it, but will Paul produce the product that he wants to produce, or will he produce the product that the board wants him to produce, which is sports entertainment? Which we know sports entertainment is not really a product that everybody likes.
No. What do you think, Anthony?
Look, I'm indifferent on this. And the reason why I'm indifferent is that, in a way, no matter which way you look at it, it could be that maybe McMahon is still at the head of the table. But the way I see it is that is it probably time to, I know it's probably going to be the most stupidest idea I've ever said, but is it probably time for Vince to go, okay, maybe it's time for me just to go and leave it in the hands of, like, I know Triple H won't do it with the way he's been recently, and I mean, I guess Stephanie could fill that hole, but then again, this is a point where we're at. He's got these allegations. Now, I can report right here, right now, with his SmackDown promo, he had 56,000 dislikes or something like that.
Yeah.
Just that one video. I don't know what he got for his Raw promo, but see, I don't think in the way this is happening, I don't think he should be making appearances.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree, but as I said earlier, I see both sides of the argument, and I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with either side. I mean, there is a school of thought, Anthony, that you keep your head down, keep a low profile, let the investigation take its course, and see what happens. Or if you go Vince being Vince, he's just going to come out and say, "I've got nothing to hide. I'm out here." Da 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 da. Or whether he thinks it's his last shot at coming out, so he's going to have a couple of goes. Or it's hard to know what he'd be thinking. Here's a man. Don't forget, and I'm not pro Vince, but here's a man who took on the US government and beat them in the court of law.
Yep.
Twice.
You also
once on tax and once on
steroids.
Steroid thing.
Also, he's a gambler as well.
He's a gambler. He'll play the odds. He's taken on. He's got access to the very best in the world of whatever he needs in terms of legal advice and all sorts of, whatever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are. If the facts say you did all that and you brought disrepute to the company, blah, 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 then it's up to the board to either remove him or not. Interestingly enough, too, a week before this broke, Kevin Dunn dumped, $20 million worth of shares?
Well, he's in issues too because I reckon he's insider trading.
Yeah, so he could go to jail for 20 years for insider trading. Laurinaitis is definitely gone, regardless of what happens. But this is Vince's company, so it's not quite so clean cut.
Well, it's not Vince's company anymore. As soon as it becomes public traded, you've given those rights up. He's got 81% of the stocks.
Yeah, so...
But he's really... I think he still runs on the realm as he can sack everybody. You can't. I think he Vince honestly believes that he could sack everybody on the board and just take over. I think he thought that until, I think reality might have hit and said, well, wait on. They can get rid of me even with 81% of stocks. Because
so
you've
what happens
breached
with
a contract.
Shane McMahon?
He's not part of the company anymore. So and he's probably thinking he's probably thinking, well, glad my head's not in this mess.
Yeah, he's sort of the clean royal. Although Stephanie and Triple H are not really.
Well, Steph was bagged on the way out the door. She
was bagged because of her business acumen.
Yeah, but they made her CEO.
Yeah, well, that was probably part of the plea bargain, so to speak. And Vince voluntarily stepped down, but a member of my family is still there until the investigation's finished.
If you look at it, right, and I'm not having a go at Steph McMahon, right? I've got no issue with Steph McMahon at all.
No.
Right? Her brother, right? He ran. What company did he run? Was it Amazon?
Nah.
Was some Chinese.
Some Chinese large. He was the CEO of a very successful large Chinese. Maybe I can't think of which one. DH Gate or something like that. Online trading company. He was very successful. Why would you have not put somebody in? And as I'm saying, Shane. Why would you have not put Shane in that position, which has actually had prior experience in doing this? But they put Steph, and I'll tell you why they put Steph. One, she's a female. It's not being negative to females, but it gives a better light in the current situation. And she's WWE to the core.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? If she bleeds the white, red, and black. Right? She's their company colours. Right?
Yeah.
Triple H with the heart condition, he's not going to be able to handle it all. Right? I think he won't be able to handle it. Right? But
I don't know about that.
I don't know. They're saying with the heart thing, he wasn't interested. He said that, right? And with Steph, I think they must be looking after her pretty well financially because I wouldn't have gone back after the things they said about her.
But it's her dad's company sort of thing, and it's family, and it's.
I don't know, mate.
There'll be pages and pages more that none of us know.
Oh, for sure, exactly.
But if you had Shane McMahon and Paul Heyman.
Well, you have one in creative and one running the business.
Yeah.
And don't let the two worlds mix. It always makes me wonder how you've got a guy that comes in that's... this reminds me of WCW.
Yeah.
When they had... I can't think of his... I don't know. The guy before him, that the reason why Flair left.
Was it Anderson? Oh, no.
I'm trying to think of his name now. He was the ex-KFC freaking world CEO.
Yes, I know who you mean.
His name eludes me, and I think to our listeners, sorry, but his name eludes me. Right? He was trying to write storylines and run stories, but he was an ex, KFC CEO. Yeah. What would he know? What would he know about the business? You leave that to the people who know, and you run the business and make the business profitable. Get advertising in, get sponsorship in, get make the business profitable, get it on more channels. That's really should be the goal of the board.
The business as a business.
Yeah.
And let creative run the show, so to speak.
And the first thing you get rid of, if you're on there, and this is a Steph McMahon problem, is get rid of all the comedy writers.
Oh.
Just let the guys give the guys a topic and let them go out and talk on it. this word from word scripted. It sounds scripted. It sounds worked.
No.
The really good guys can make it sound like their own. So, you know, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch and that kind of thing, they can take something that's scripted to them and say it in a way that sounds like they said it.
Yeah, that's like it used to be. Like,
but most of them can't do it.
No, well, yeah.
That's the problem with it. I mean, because you're giving them
Although I've said on this show numerous times, if you remember when there was that big rain and storm delay with WrestleMania last year.
Yeah.
And remember, they had to fill half an hour, and they just brought everybody in, lined them all up, cut promo. Some of the best promos I've seen any of these guys cut, because they just did it off the hip like we used to.
Well, look at how we're doing our show.
They were believable. You listen to it and you thought, oh, and I'm sitting there, with some knowledge, and you're watching and you're thinking, gee, this is good. This is actually good.
You look at this show here tonight.
Yeah.
We've only gone through the material. There's nothing written down. We're just coming straight off the top of our heads. It's much better than, say, having to read down what's happened match by match. So, they need, that's one thing they really need to get rid of. But the question will be, will the product suffer or improve from all this? Right at the end of it, will Vince hold his job? Will Vince be back? Vince is 78.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you're going to have to give it up, but he's going to be like Flair. They'll die in the ring.
Yeah.
But if Vince can't survive and he loses his job, I think the business, if you've got what you've got now as a foundation or a platform, and the right people come in and write brilliant stories and get creative, really creative, and, whatever, the business can go from strength to strength. You handpick, because they can get anybody they want.
Yeah.
You handpick the talent you want, whether they've been there before, whether they're gone, whether you've had an argument with them, totally irrespective. You almost got to say, I'm starting a company from scratch. I've got all of this backing. I've got all of this foundation, all of this TV reach, whatever. Who are the 30, 40 best guys I can get? Who are the 20, 25 best girls I can get? Put that roster together and have some really, really good creative, get everybody interested. Because when people are watching a bloody good show and really good stories and all of the rest of that, no one's going to give a tinker's toss about who's running the business and what's happening on the shares and the board. That'll almost take care of itself if the product is good and there's bums on seats and merchandise being sold and house shows being sold. Everything comes back to the product that you're putting out there.
That's right. That's exactly right. 100%, Pete. What do you reckon, Anthony?
With the whole thing, I'm honestly going to say this right now. I don't think Vince should be making appearances on TV. I understand rating grabs and all that, but if you're in a situation where you could possibly lose you are going to lose your job, regardless of whether it's true or false, considering he's going to accept whatever comes through, then I don't think you should be making yourself public. I think you should be staying in the background and letting it sort itself out before you make yourself public, because really all those two promos from Vince were rating grabs. Like, what are you really talking about?
I think there's more to it, Anthony. I think he might also be acting on some legal advice. Go out there, almost from a marketing point of view, put yourself out there, show you're not hiding, show, da-da-da-da-da. I'm not saying I agree, but I'm just saying he may be acting on advice.
I mean, he might be, but the same thing is that let's say if you were in this situation, Pete, would you want to be showing your face on live TV?
If I felt, and again, look, these are all allegations. So nothing's proven 100% yet, but I don't think you've got to be super smart to work out that's probably true. But at this stage, they are allegations that are being investigated. The fact he's paid her out of his own money and all of that probably isn't an issue. The issue is what Mike said earlier. The actions bringing the company into disrepute and you're a CEO and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Would I go out? Can I be honest? I don't know. Part of me would, to sort of show, hey, in my own mind, maybe I haven't done anything wrong. I mean, he has, but I'm just saying. Maybe my legal advice was, well, if you hide and cower and keep a low profile, people are just going to assume you're guilty. It's like something I was told years and years and years ago. If I stood up in a room of 100 people and made a statement, and I said something like, well, we now have unrefutable scientific proof that the Earth is flat. They reckon 50% of the people in the room will believe you and 50% will say you're an absolute moron. So, Vince coming out, maybe half the people will say, well, he's shoving it right up them, because he's got nothing to hide, whatever, I don't know. And 50% will probably say it's wrong. And to be honest with you, to some degree, they're almost probably both right. He's not found guilty yet. He hasn't actually committed any crime either, by the way, but he has certainly under the guise of, a CEO and a chairman, brought the company into disrepute, the shareholders, all of that stuff. So I get all that, and that's correct.
It's not actually criminal charges. There's not actually any criminal charges.
No, not at all. The only one who's going to face criminal charges is Kevin Dunn.
That's right.
And that's a whole separate issue. That was, but whether he knew this was coming and thought I better start offloading in case the share price goes south, but so that's got to be determined. So we shouldn't speak on that because that is a criminal matter. The other one's really more the Vince thing's more of an ethical matter. And to be honest, I don't think Vince would give a crap about moral or ethical how he's viewed.
Getting back to Anthony's question, I think it depends on the personality of the individual.
Yeah.
Some people's personalities will hide and say, listen, I'm just going to wait for this to blow over.
Yeah.
And then you've got people like Vince, which are, very extroverted, right? That's just going to stay defiant. I'm going to stand there and show you guys I might be in trouble, but I'm just going to keep doing what I do.
Yeah.
Who's no one's going to stop me? So I think it's really down to the individual. I don't know if there's a lawyer telling him to do it. I don't know if there's or anything like that, or marketing. Yeah. I've got no idea, but he would have no issue by the rumors of the man doing it. He'd have no issue in doing it.
Oh, no. Well, he's done it.
That's right. He wouldn't be thinking about it, going home thinking about it, and like I said, this is not the first time. There's been rumours around like this for years.
Actually, Mick, why wouldn't Linda McMahon run the company? She sold her stocks off. She's got nothing to do with the company at all. They don't even live in the same house anymore. Yeah, but could she not run she was on Trump's administration as the equivalent of like Minister for Business and all of that.
She probably could, but I don't think she's involved. I think as far as I'm
even better that you're one step removed, although with intimate knowledge, but one step removed.
I don't know. I know she lives in Florida now. She does no longer live in... Yeah, she doesn't even live with Vince anymore.
No, well, apparently he's in some gated retirement community place or something.
Yeah, he's... I don't think they even live in the same state. Nah. So I think, and I think with his last affair, I think that sort of split them up. If what I'm led to believe is true.
Oh, he would have been.
But she hasn't been on the show since what? 99?
Sorry?
She hasn't been on the show since 99, 2000.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't see. I think Linda's probably so far removed from it all. I think Steph, because of the name McMahon and that, to keep the stocks happy and that kind of thing. But I can't see her doing it full time. I don't think she has the business knowledge. I'm just
names as they pop into my head, and you sort of think of different scenarios. If they want to sort of keep it in the family, so to speak.
And what Anthony and I were talking about the other night was WWE worth 4.5 billion? Is that correct?
I can take a quick look, Neil.
I think we were talking about the other night. So it's not like they're going to be brought out too soon. Maybe, one of the major networks or Disney might buy them out, but it won't be like a Tony Khan buying them out. Not at 4.5 billion. So they could even sell it off. Who knows?
Well, that would be sad.
Yeah, it would be sad.
I think that could be the demise of wrestling.
Yep.
Per se, because people might say, "Oh, well, yeah, AEW and some of the others will all step up." I don't know that they'd ever get to that.
Let's say they sold WWE off.
Yeah.
Right, in the next 6 months, it'd become a Disney network thing.
Yeah.
Right? And then Disney get their way to it, and all of a sudden it's Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? And they've trashed the company. I don't think AEW can fill the hole. I don't think I don't think the four major companies, which I'll list them, which is AEW, New Japan, NWA, and Impact, which are about the four companies below WWE.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think all four of those companies could fill the hole. Right? Because I like the product of NWA. For me, the product of NWA is the old school style wrestling.
Yeah, the old pure style.
Yeah, the old pure style. For me, I think that's the correct style. AEW's a bunch of gymnastics. Yeah. Most of those guys are gymnasts, and it's not wrestling; it's gymnastics, right? I like what Impact's doing at the moment. I like their style of work, right? So, but I don't think they have the media push or reach of WWE.
No, none of them do.
Well, AEW maybe, because they're on the Turner Network, but the other two definitely not. They're still working on part-time shows on small cable networks. But I think the product, for me personally, what I watch, the product that the NWA or Impact is a better product, maybe better than WWE.
That's why I said to you earlier, if they bring in a real wrestling person for creative and storylines and whatever, it doesn't really, when I say it doesn't matter who runs the business side, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you've got, if you can get it back to how it used to be, believable superstars in the ring, unscripted promos, really good matchups, good storylines, and there's bums on seats and TV ratings, and then merchandise will just naturally sell, house shows will sell, pay-per-views will sell. Yeah, the board just has to really cross the T's and dot the I's sort of thing, because everything will take care of itself.
So the right sponsors for the right product and that kind of thing.
I don't have a problem with sponsors. I mean,
but I mean just the right products too, not just selling everything that they can get. Have the right products on there, and also too the problem. What killed wrestling? The current wrestling. What killed it? Right, is the stuff they done in the 90s and the early 2000s with all the hot shotting. That's why every now there's got to be a storyline, there's got to be a main event. There was so much hot shotting with Austin, with Rock, everything else. I'm going to load your car up with concrete and get a beer truck and get a milk truck. It's become ridiculous, right? And I think now, this is my honest belief, and I could be wrong, and I hope some listener hears this and says, no, you're absolutely wrong, or you're right, whatever the story may be. Why we've gone to such a high-risk style of wrestling, because the current style is high risk. These guys are done at 35, right? They're done, absolutely minced. The knees, the backs, everything else, right? And why we had guys back from the 70s still wrestling in the 90s, right? Right, is the style. We can't hot shot. You can't afford the hot shot, right? So if I make myself more acrobatic and more death-defying, that's basically another form of hot shotting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, until everyone does it, then it's not hot shotting anymore. It's like the hardcore match. I can't match. I reckon Paul Heyman probably thought, well, I can't really match WWE and ECW's budgets on, driving through cars and semi-trailers and everything else. But if my guys are hitting themselves in the head with rubbish bins and going through flaming tables, well, that's a hot shot. I think that has really hurt the business. What the current style of business we got now, the current style, right, is because that of all the hot shotting from the late 90s, mid 90s, and early 2000s. Because to change that style, you don't want to be like it was before. You have to become more acrobatic.
The other thing is, like, and there's no difference. Like, you know, it's all the same. I mean, you can see the move about 10 seconds before it's going to happen. You know, they're all congregated outside, so you know someone's going to come over the top rope or be, you know, and they're all going to catch them, but they're taking them out. Or, you know, the super kick is just used by everybody. There's just, like, even today on Raw, you had, that Gable in a gauntlet match against Lashley, and he had the ankle lock on him for 3 minutes on Lashley.
If you put that on someone for real, you're going to break the ankle.
But he had it on for 3 minutes, which is fine. Lashley gets up and runs across the side of the ring.
Yeah.
And the referee spoke to him, and then he sold it. The referee had to remind him to sell the ankle.
Yeah.
And this is Lashley. Like, I mean, the guy can work. He's no jabroni.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, like, you know, you teach the guys now, you this is why I lose patience sometimes, right? DDT.
Yeah.
The DDT, will say, back in the 80s was the most devastating move going around. It was right up there with the pole driver.
Yeah.
Right? As soon as you hit that on someone, the only way that person's going to kick out of that move if you took too long to pin him. Right? So if you got up, you walked around, or somebody else got in the ring and disturbed you, and you had to punch on with the other person, and then you got back down after 15, 20, maybe a minute, and then he just squeaks out the shoulder, right? Now they take a DDT, 1 count, they're kicked out.
Yeah.
I watched Elias deliver an elbow, a Randy Savage elbow, beautiful elbow, to Owens, and gets a 2 count. So that's style.
There's no finishing move anymore.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is it needs to be looked at, because and I really do contribute this to all the hot shotting in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and 2000s, where everyone hot shotted. Shows were based on hot shotting, right? And then now the wrestling style, we have to hot shot everything, so we can't sell that. It's got to be the bigger move, bigger move, bigger move, bigger move. What I like about watching the NWA product is that if a DDT is going to happen, instead of taking that DDT, they look for escape.
Yeah, block it.
They grab the ropes. They show that there's fear to the hold, fear to the movement, fear to a suplex. If I take that, it's going to hurt me, so I don't want to take it. Instead of just take it and kick it out, they use good psychology. That's what I think. That's what we need to go back to. I know we've gone off the course of Vince.
The problem you've got, Mick, say somebody comes in and wants to do that, but you've got a whole generation who've now been raised on that, and then you try to take it back the other way.
Well, that's going
to be a problem.
That all comes down to money and to opportunity. Let's say you're WWE. Let's say we were running WWE, a network. Let's say not WWE. Let's say Impact, which is a smaller one. We have TV, and we're paying our wrestlers X amount of money, whatever they are. You're working for these people, for us, right? So you say, this is what I want. This is the problem with Tony Khan. Tony Khan's let them do whatever they want. Go there, put on a match. Right? He's not running booking. He's telling them that you're going to face each other, but they're basically running everything completely. You should, and Tony Khan, I don't expect Tony Khan to know what we're talking about right now. He wouldn't have a clue, right? No. Right? But if you're in Tony Khan's position, with the money he has, I would slow down that style and say, listen, I'm paying you X. I'm putting you on TV where you can be known, right? X and Y squared equals freaking X squared. You're going to do what I tell you. And the what I'm telling you is that this is how I want the match to happen. You change the style. Tony Khan has that ability to change the style, right? By just simply saying to him, if you don't do it, you're out the door.
The point I was trying to make, sorry, Nick, is a whole generation of fans have been brought up watching what they're watching now and have been for the last 10, 15 years, whatever. If you then change the style dramatically, you're going to turn all of them off and almost have to start again.
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think if you start adding it in where instead of just accepting to take the suplex, you block it and you reverse it.
Yeah.
Right? You turn it into a small package, you break away and bail out the ring if you're a heel and check your body to make sure you haven't been hurt. And you show, and then when you take that suplex next time around and you sell it big and you kick out on the last count, it means that things got more value. The crowd will turn around. And if anything, the problem with the current business is why we don't have the truck drivers anymore and the factory workers and the guys that went to the pub that don't watch it anymore because it looks fake.
Yeah, it does, absolutely.
You listen to any interview from the 70s, right? And they go into the crowd and they say, actually, that guy, that Geraldo, that got smacked by Dr. Death.
Yeah.
He was in the audience before that and he was saying to people, what are you watching this fake thing for? And he goes, well, we know it's pre-done. But it looks like the guys are having a fight and we're enjoying what we're watching. We've lost that crowd.
Oh, absolutely.
We've lost that crowd. You know the only crowd we've got anymore are the ones that go to Comic-Con. We've lost. WWE used to pull 9 to 10 million people a night. Now they barely struggle to get 2. That's how much audience they've lost due to the current style of wrestling. And that started off by all the hot shotting. You need to step it back a bit. That's the honest truth.
So I suppose suffice to say, did you get that figure at all, Anthony?
It ran about 63 point something US dollars. That's what they're worth now.
What the shares?
Yeah.
Yeah, but didn't we see a figure online where they said the value of WWE is 4.5 billion? We did find a figure the other night. There was an actual figure.
That's probably about right. If you consider the worldwide television deals and the merchandising and everything they own, like because they own all their own equipment, the trucks, they bring it to air and probably the value of the talent and whatnot. So and the training center and all the rest of it. That's probably about right.
Yeah.
But regardless, I mean, it's massive, massive money that I don't think any one person or corporation necessarily. Oh, well, a corporation might, but
like I said, the only people you could see that could buy them out in reality would be Disney or one of the large networks.
And then that would become really quite scary because you don't know what they'll do.
Well, they don't know the product. They don't know wrestling.
Well, that's it. That's why I'm saying you've got to have wrestling people running wrestling.
Yeah, that's it.
And surely they would have to know that, wouldn't they?
Oh, well, look what they did with that.
Let me put it to you this way. Would you go and buy a $4 billion business that, I don't know, manufactured plastic cups and you've never, ever been in manufacturing? Like you wouldn't.
Well, if you weren't running it, you were buying it as an asset, as a pure to your portfolio, yeah. Yeah, but that's what these places look at. They'll just buy it at the portfolio. Look at what WCW.
You need to put the right people there. You've got to have enough trust.
Yeah, but you look at early WCW from the 90s when they put the Colonel Sanders guy in charge, and the Crockett sold up, and look at what happened there. Like that was a disaster. That company went from being probably an equal to WWE. In reality, was an equal in the South.
Oh, right? They were certainly killing them in the ratings for a while.
Yeah, until they went down to nearly, a quarter of the ratings through the early 90s with some of the ridiculous gimmicks. And what saved short term, once again, it was all about hot shotting that, and then when you run out of hot shots, you're done, right? Was, what was his name?
Bischoff? No?
Bischoff, that's what I was thinking of. Bischoff got involved in the booking, started saying to people from WWE that were stars, I don't care how much you want, I'm going to pay to come across, and started hot-shotting every show.
Yeah.
And that was really the start of hot-shotting, really, was from WCW. And they did. Was it 83 weeks they were on top?
Was it that long?
I think it was 83 weeks. I'm pretty sure. Doesn't he have that podcast, 83 Weeks, Bischoff?
Yep.
Okay.
83 weeks, right? So 83 weeks he was on top, right? But that was all based on all the hot shotting.
Yeah.
You know, that like I said hot shotting really hurt the business.
Almost 2 years, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really hurt the business. Hot shotting did. Because then how do you top it? One guy drives over it. They fill up McMahon's Trans Am or whatever it was, or
Corvette, I think it was, or
Corvette with concrete. You know, milk trucks and beer trucks and army equipment out the front of WCW. You know, I mean, they were great. Don't get me wrong. They were fantastic. They were entertaining. But how do you top it?
Yeah, no, it's hard.
You can't. And so that's hurt the business. Actually, we are lucky that, in a way, that we've got such a terrible style of wrestling at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Because to build off that is easier than what it was to try and build off with the hot shot.
If The Rock put a conglomerate together and bought it?
He probably could. Even without being smart, he probably could. Probably has enough people that he'd have in his hip pocket and that kind of thing that he could convince to put money down for this. Is The Rock, firstly, does The Rock truly love the business? Right.
He does. It's in his blood. He's growing up with it.
Secondly, what's his vision for the business? Is he going to look at bringing it back and making it into an old school thing? Is he going to run it like the 90s and the 2000s where they're going to hot shot everything? It won't last long then. They start hot shotting, give it 2 years, it'll be out of business.
But fans are fickle.
Fans are fickle. Yeah.
You know? I mean, wrestling fans are the only fans that will complain that they want something. When they get it, they complain that they got it.
Yeah, that's why you got to. That's what Vince has been the smartest guy in history, because he's basically told them this is what you want, never agreed to it.
Yeah.
He said, "This is what I'm giving you. You know, you're no longer wrestlers; they're sports entertainers."
Yeah, I don't.
What a freaking bullshit line!
I hate
honestly.
That. Yeah, I must.
Right.
All right. So, what do we think is going to be the outcome, Anthony? What do you think will happen?
With the Vince situation, or?
Well, yeah, Vince. I mean, because really, until that's determined, it's hard to really know what else. You can't really speculate much more. Do you think he'll go?
I think he'll be deemed guilty. I mean, it's almost crystal clear he has been deemed guilty, but
will he survive?
It's really hard to say.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I don't think there's any doubt that. Well, I don't know. I don't like to use the word guilty because he has not committed any criminal offence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a moral, ethical, CEO of a big company situation. So, guilty or not, to some degree, is probably irrelevant. Because I think, it's there and there's been plenty in the past from what we understand. But will he survive?
It's really hard to say.
Yeah, but the fact that we actually don't know, and, you can't really say hand on heart in your own opinion, yes, he'll go, no, he'll stay or whatever. I think that in itself is almost the story of the man, the power, the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right there, Pete. You don't know what will happen. I reckon between you and me, I think he's gone.
Yeah.
And I'll say why I'm leaning more towards gone than to stay is I think it just looks really, really bad for their board.
Yeah.
And I think that in these publicly traded companies, that the perception of the company is very important.
Oh, absolutely. Well, shit.
Well, you've worked in enough big companies and been at the pointy end of a lot of big companies, to know that above all, it's their image, their market and their image and their branding that means a lot to these companies.
It's all branding.
Yeah. So the brand's not going to look too good if you've got a CEO that is a adulterer, right? And also then was willing to bribe people to keep something quiet. I don't think there's nothing illegal he's done.
No.
But he has literally bribed somebody with money to keep him quiet.
Well, he wouldn't be the first CEO, would he?
Oh, no, not at all. But I'm saying is that he's
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds who've done it. Yeah. Unfortunately, he's an extremely public figure.
Yeah.
And, one of the biggest sort of companies out there, particularly on TV every week and the whole bit. So he's very much in the spotlight. I mean, there's nobody who doesn't know who he is.
I think it's going to be very, very hard for him to survive it as far as on the board side of things. Maybe as far as still a character, you might still see him. He might still be there as a character, as Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, the character.
You might see him in creative, but I think as far as CEO, I think he might be done.
I'm tending to think that, to be honest, his bum in the big chair, his days are limited there. Well, he's out of it now, and I don't think he'll get back. But for me, the biggest worry is who steps in.
Yeah, well, that's going to be
because really, it's almost a knife-edge thing. You make the wrong decision, that company's going to go like WCW.
Definitely.
But if you made the right decision, it could be the platform for a massive, something we've probably never seen before again. He took it to the level he did. It may go another level.
I think you need to restructure the company.
Yeah.
And really split business from product. Then work your product controls down, and then have your business side of things running your legal and your business side of things. I think at the moment Vince does probably both and too much of both. Probably still runs it a little bit.
With the reach of the wild world of wrestling, Vince will hear this.
Oh, I hope he does. He can be on the next show.
And I think, Vince, if you're listening, you could do a lot worse than picking up Mick and myself to run creative for you.
This is true. You could do a lot worse.
That's all I'm saying.
You could do a lot worse. You could go and get someone from AEW to run it. That could be disastrous.
Yes.
I think that you'd have to restructure, because I think Vince over the years has probably had his foot on both sides of the line, where he's been on the business side. I think he still runs it a little bit like when it was back in the days when it wasn't a publicly traded company. It was still a family-owned company, or a company, not a publicly owned one. If that makes any sense, what I'm saying. I think he still runs it. I think he still runs it a little bit like that. Still, I think.
Yeah, and he's got people. Although two of them are gone now, or if they haven't, they will be. But like Dunn and Laurinaitis and Pritchard and them.
Well, Pritchard won't go anywhere, I don't think. He has done nothing wrong in all of this.
No, but they're all yes men, and they just do what he wants, so keep him happy, but at the cost of the business.
But I don't know if Pritchard will stay if there's no Vince and they change the structure of the company.
I don't think he can. He's done nothing wrong. Absolutely.
No, but I don't think he'll stay as far as that they will force him out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't think he can stay. I think you need, to a fair degree, you need a clean sweep.
Yeah, I think you need to have a clean out. Have a real clean out of that side of things and look.
And have creative as creative. Wrestling bookers.
Yep.
Let's just call it what it is. That's what they are. Wrestling bookers.
Yep.
And they book the matches, they book the storylines, they do all of that. And the TV people, put the whole thing around that.
Well, that's Kevin Dunn.
And the business runs but he's not going to be there. And the business runs the business.
That's what I'm saying. And Kevin Dunn had way too much to do with the product too. If you read between the lines and what you read and what you hear, he was saying to wrestlers, "You're not wrestlers, you're superstars, and this is how I want you to do things in the ring, in this angle and that angle." He turned it into more of a because Kevin Dunn was originally, I think he was off soapies and things like that. He wasn't even from a sports background.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Right, so. He turned it into more of a soapy style film setup. I think really a clean out would probably do him the world of good. I think I think that would do him a world of good.